In most programming language, a loop is used to execute a block of code several numbers of time. Like this is a block of code here, fmt print ln and hello world. So this is a block of code to print hello world to the screen. But instead of me having this same block of code to be executed several times, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 times, it's inefficient this way. So there should be a proper way to do this using less lines of code and in a more efficient way. That is what will bring us to a for loop. But let us see what the output of this will give here. So I have to make sure I'm in the right directory. I check my directory. So I have where I going to is loop. So I change to loop directory. I change to loop directory. I clear my screen. So I'm now in the loop directory. The code I want to execute, let me list the file there first. I have loop.go. So I use go run loop dot go. So this is the code I want to execute. Let me see the output of that. It's print hello world 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 times to the screen. So instead of me rewriting the same block of code 5 times, there should be a proper way of doing that. So I can just scrap this and say okay, delete, and I don't want to see you here again because I have better solution for that. So the solution for that is writing a for loop. And how do I get to write a for loop? The statement just comes this way. It says for, then I have my I variable, which was initialized, this initializing statement, which was initialized to 0, then separated by semicolon. Then I have uh the next one that this is a condition which says I is less than 5. This is the one that check, this is the condition for this for loop. It check if something is still true, then it does this and execute this block of code again. So this is a statement for me to have control over my loop. That is for me to terminate my loop, not to run into infinite loop. So I should increment. Here I is set to 0. Then once it checked for this condition, I is less than 5. Okay, here 0 is less than 5. Then it should run this block of code, which is print hello world. Then after printing this, it increments the value of I, which is I plus plus, which is I plus 1. That's what it means. So I plus 0 plus 1 will now become 1. It will check if 1 is less than 5, which is true. It will execute this block of code, then also increase 1 to that I variable again, where I will be 2. Then it will check it and say if 2 is less than 5, which is true, it will print this block of codes again. So that is for loop. The initialization statement, the condition statement, and the termination statement, the one that I use in having control over my loop. That's the one I use in having control over my loop. So having this structure, this is the block of code to be executed the number of times this will become true. That is for my condition. It is the block of code to be executed if this condition is true. Why this is the incrementing variable. So let's check out for this. Let's say the result for this. It should print hello world starting from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Which means it's printing it 5 times. So yeah, I clear my screen first. Then I really compile that code, go run loop to see the output of that. Luckily for me, it will be the same thing. What it does is saying hello world 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 times. So this is the condition that is being checked to execute a block of code. Why this here incrementing variable is just for me to have control over my code. So that's for the first part of the for loop. Let's look at another example here to get familiar with it. Okay, so I uncomment this using control then /. Okay, so I have my for loop, I have my variable initialization, and I have my this condition which is less than 50. Then I should increment. So this is the incrementing variable. Then this is the block of code to be executed if this I is still less than 50, whereas I is starting from 0. This is an inferred declaration of a variable, which means var I of type integer, which take the type from the value being assigned to it. Here I have for I is equal to 0, then I is less than this. You check for this. Okay, so now let me save that and let me clear my screen here so we can have enough room. Then I recompile my code to see the result printed to the screen. So what it does is printing this out. This is it here. The value of I is not starting from 4, it's starting from 0. So the value of I is 0. The value of I in the next loop is 1. The value of I in the next one is 2, going on up to 49, because for I, if I is equal to 50, 50 is less than 50, which return false, then it won't print this block of code. Remember, the value of I is, then I have a formal specifier here, which is a percentage %d, which is replacing I. That's why I have my printf statement here. So I have I here, which is the variable from this loop. For each of the variable, it will be printing it out. For the value of I is 0, first execution. Then in the next execution, it updates the value of I, which is the function of this I++, which will make my code to terminate by the time I is equal to 49. Checking the value for I is equal to 50, then it will terminate this for loop, not to run into infinite loop. So this is another example for that, and we have seen that I is less than 50. If I should use less than or equal to 50, then it will surely print out the value of I is 50 also, but I'm not going to use that. That's for variable. Now let us take a look at the nested for loop. The nested for loop. So I uncomment this using control /. So I have printing a pyramid. This is a comment, sorry. This is a comment. So we print a pyramid. This function is just to print a pyramid. And I have 4 statements. Nested for loop means a loop inside another loop. So I have the first statement, which is this is the initialization, and this is the condition to be checked. Then this is the terminating part of my for loop, which for a for loop always have 3 parts: the variable initialization, then condition to be checked, and incremental variable. So I also have this another for loop, which is initializing this iterator to be j of type integer. Then it check for j is less than I, which is the value here. If I is lesser, I is 3, then it will be checking for I is less than 3, then printing out this one. So for my nested loop, what I have is print hash and a space. Print hash and a space. Then at the end of everything, at the end of each of this literature, I print a new line. That means it should always move to a new line. So what this does is to print a pyramid to the screen. So yeah, this will print hash to the screen. So I have if I is equal to 0, then the first one will say, okay, I is also equal to j is equal to 0 here. It will check for j is less than I, then it will do what this code is asking it to do. So let me save my file and execute this block of code to see what is going on. I first clear my screen, then I execute this to see what is going on here. Okay, so it's print a pyramid of, there's a space here, which is the first one. J is equal to I is equal to 0, so j is always less than 0, which will return just print of a new line. So I have 1 2 3 4 5 printed to the screen, which is I is less than 5. That is height of 5 pyramid. This is just a pyramid, a for loop inside another for loop. That's a nested loop in Go programming. The same initialization, then the block of code to be executed.